Hey everyone, welcome to the Palikari Business Podcast. My name is Abby.
And I'm Nick.
And we're the founders of Odyssey Productions Co., a video production company located in the Central Valley of California.
Yeah, the word Palikari is a Greek word that means a young person who's achieved great things beyond their years.
So in each episode of this podcast, we will be interviewing successful business owners, influencers, and entrepreneurs to learn from their wisdom, experiences, and even their mistakes in hopes of helping you achieve great things beyond your years.
Thank you so much for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed the episode.
Anna Alvarez is a licensed marriage and family therapist who has had a faith-based private practice for 10 years, specializing in treating trauma. She is a speaker, teacher, and pastor, but her most important role is being a wife and mother. And Anna, we are so happy to have you on the podcast today. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
It's awesome
this
that
is
you're
exciting.
here.
Yeah, it's so awesome. So just before we get started, can you give us a little bit of a background just about yourself and your story a little bit, just so people can get to know you?
Sure. So I started in the psychology field. I suppose it's about my career. I started in psychology not knowing that I wanted to do psychology. But it kind of just, as I feel like as I have gone through my journey in my career, just like little things just start opening up, and then I'm like, oh yeah, that's what I want. That's what I want, right? That's the direction. Instead of having like this end goal of what I wanted, it just kind of just started opening up. So actually, when I was in high school, I had an assignment, and it was to interview or shadow somebody in a career that I wanted to do. And so I really didn't know. I thought at that time I was going to do social work, like helping people. And so my mom was working at an elementary school at the time, and she's like, well, we have a school counselor here. Do you want to talk to that person? I'm like, okay, sure. I just need to do this assignment. So talked to her, and I was like, okay, that looks kind of good. And so I started at the junior college thinking I was going to do social work until I realized what social work really was. And it's a really close sister to psychology, but it's different also. So ended up, I more wanted to go to a certain school, and the degree they had there was psychology. So I was like, okay, I'll just do psychology. And so I did that. And then after I got my degree, then I started working in like nonprofits. I worked in group homes. I worked like county-based kind of places. And I realized that what I wanted to do was something I couldn't do. I had seen the person doing the counseling, and I was like, oh, I want to do what they're doing. How do I do that? And so it was kind of just how I decided that's what I wanted to do. Ended up going back to get a degree so that I could do that. And then parenting was always, I had two littles when I went to graduate school. So I've been doing, like, it's always been together,
Yeah.
So I knew I wanted to work part-time because I wanted to focus more on being a mom, but I wanted to still work. So I did that. And then, so when I got the degree, I was working in a nonprofit doing part-time, and then opportunity opened up to do a private practice, which is, in my field, you will mostly see people who more are doing it part-time. So it's like the private practice is usually like a side thing, and their main job is usually like with a nonprofit or a county-based job or in a hospital or a school or something like that. And more people do it full-time towards like retirement age. And so it's rare to see somebody in the field who's doing it full-time. And so that's kind of how I started.
Yeah.
Long answer for it.
Yeah.
No, that's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah,
I liked
definitely.
that you shared that, you didn't just know the end goal, and the path really does take a lot of turns and stuff, because I feel like there's a really big pressure on, like, you have to know what your end goal is,
Right.
but most of the time you don't.
You don't know.
So it's,
Definitely.
yeah.
Right.
It's cool
And
to hear that.
I do get a lot of people who are interested, who are like students, or they're like, oh, I'm studying psychology. And so they'll ask me, like, what should I start doing? And I'm like, really, you need to start getting into a job or in a position that is just related to the field. So you could see
Yeah.
what you even like, because it's so vast. Like there's so many things you can do. And so if you start working with kids, or you start working in a school, or like something connected, you can see if that's even the population you want to serve, or if that's even the area. So then, because it's sort of like a commitment, right? Like a commitment to this relationship, and it feels intimidating. Like, oh gosh, if I choose that degree, then I have to do that for the rest of my life. And so with this, you just start getting your toes wet, and you kind of see what you like and what you don't.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Definitely. And it's not like if you try something and don't like it, you're not stuck, or it's not like you failed. You can keep trying different things. So
Yeah.
that's cool. Yeah. So one other kind of personal question then. What is one of the hardest things you had to deal with when you were starting your practice, your private practice, and how did you kind of overcome that, if you're comfortable sharing?
Yeah. So because and this happens probably for anybody in any field, but you learned the craft or the skill to do. Like you learn how to do it. Like if you're doing what you're doing, you learn how to do the videography and the camera work, but you don't get trained in the business part of it.
Yeah.
And so the business is very different. So I went to school for psychology, and I know how to do that. I knew how to do the counseling piece, but when it came to the business aspect, it was like, what in the world? I have no idea how to do like all the back end stuff. And so it was interesting, because right when I started, I was trying to remember. I think it was through LinkedIn. There were two therapists who had just started their own business, helping other therapists start their own private practice.
Cool.
Okay.
And they were basically reaching out to local therapists or therapists throughout to say they were starting a therapist boot camp. Basically, you want to start a private practice, we have like material, courses, we'll mentor you, we'll show you how to do the ins and outs on how to do this. And they actually reached out, I think, to me like on LinkedIn, because they knew I was a therapist. And so I remember like responding to their email, and they were even like, oh, you want to set up a phone call? And I was like, okay, I'll just talk to them, right? Like, just talk to them and see. Like, these are people. They were actually from Modesto, so it was like, okay, I know like who they're connected to.
Yeah.
So they're legit, right?
Yeah.
But they were just starting. I didn't know what was happening. And so I'm on the phone, and they're asking me, okay, so your business, and how much are you making, and what is it that you want to do? Da, da, da. And I'm just like, you're asking me numbers, and you're asking me like all these questions. I was just starting, right? And then all of a sudden, I am paying for their course.
Yeah.
To be in their boot camp. And I'm like, I just started. And I'm like, what am I doing? Okay. And so the funny part was like, now I have to tell my husband that I just invested in this boot camp. I do not recommend doing that. Okay. I just was like, oh, what do I do? Okay. But
They're good salespeople.
they were really good. But the thing was, it was, now that I look back, okay, it's a lifetime membership. They have grown. And I remember even talking to other therapists in the field, and they're like, well, how did you start? And I'm like, well, I actually did that business boot camp with so-and-so. And they're like, you did that? Like, they were like, they knew about it. And I was like, yeah. And actually, like, they gave me everything I needed. Like, I got scripts. I got, like, forms that I would have had to have done so much work. And but I remember telling Tony, like, I did this thing. Like, I was just starting off, and we were in no position to be investing in something like that. But I was just like, and he was like, okay. He's been always my biggest supporter. So he knew that I wouldn't do anything that wasn't like legit or anything, but I was taking a risk. And so, but I did take that risk because I knew I didn't know how to do this, the business part of it. And I needed like somebody to hold my hand, or at least walk beside me and be like, okay, this is what it's going to take if this is what you want. And it wasn't like a cookie cutter model. It was like, how do you want your business to be? And so I was able to have them mentor me, and that's what helped me, I think, through. And I'm really good at like searching for people like, okay, what are they doing? Like, what system are they using? Or I need to know what their model is, and like gleaning from that. Like, I don't take it all, but I like, what can I pick and choose from it?
Yeah. Yeah, that's really good because it's so easy to start. Like I think we experienced this too. It's like, oh, we could do video. Let's do a business. But then you're really good at that thing, but you don't realize that there's the whole admin side and the logistics and the actual business part that's so hard.
Really more important side of it than the actual.
It is.
Yeah, there are people who can make like, not to be mean, but there are people who make crappy videos, but they get a lot of business because they're good at the business aspect. So it's like you have to have both.
Right. Yeah. And I always thought like, geez, I wish they would incorporate these classes into, you know, the degree because it's so vital because mostly that's what you're going to want to do. You're going to mostly want to go into business for yourself.
Yeah, exactly. This question I think is something that every entrepreneur or business owner struggles with at some point or other, and that is how do you maintain a proper work-life balance or have proper boundaries when you're running a business? Because it's really easy to fall into the trap of working all through the night or not having that time to rest or family time or things like that. So how do you maintain that boundary?
Yeah, so like I said, I knew from the beginning when I had the girls like really small that I wanted to work, but I also wanted to make sure that I was giving them the time that they needed. And so it was an agreement between my husband and I that I would do part-time. And I was able to find something that was part-time and still be available. And going into private practice, that actually allowed me to even have more flexibility because I could create a schedule that was fit for my family. And so I always had that in mind. So what my priorities were was at the time that my girls needed my attention. And so I made sure that that's what I did and held myself accountable. Like you said, we can work 24/7 because we have a laptop, we have a phone, it's at our fingertips all the time. And so that is an advantage and a disadvantage. For me at the time, it probably was an advantage because if I was somewhere with the girls, I could work. If I was, if I needed to do something late at night, I could do that. So I got this idea like probably more when I was in graduate school. I remember doing schoolwork because, like I said, I had little girls at the time, and I had the laptop, and we're in the living room when I'm working, and then I remember one of the girls saying, like, "Mom, just put the computer away already." And I was like, yeah, that's not good, right? That's not good. So I just paid attention to that. I paid attention to that I was really in the moment, being present with whatever I was doing, but also making sure that I was taking advantage of my work time. Because if I was going to be working from a set time to a set time, then I was focused. I had to be focused because I had to take advantage of that time, right? And so because we could be on social media, we could be eating a snack, we could be like just searching on, and we're not being productive. So I wanted to make sure all my time was productive. And now I have more of a good schedule. So I work in the office for 3 days. I work from home for 1 day, and I have a 3-day weekend. And I'm able to do that. We just went on vacation. And so I took time off. Well, so when you're on your own business, you don't have vacation hours and sick hours, right? So it's like, okay, we have to take into account of that, like maybe throughout the year, we have to budget for that. And then, so today was Friday. I normally have a day off. I worked. And so one of the girls said, "Why are you working today? It's Friday. You don't work on Fridays." And I said, "Yes, honey, but I took so many days off, so and I didn't get paid, so I need to be able to make up that time." And I'm okay with that because I work hard, but I play hard. Like I make sure that I have time to rest, and I make sure I have time to enjoy my family and do the things. Work is not what motivates my life.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Do you have any tips on how to stay productive in, like, after you set those, like, this is my schedule, how do you keep that focus? And
right. So I would say, depending on what kind of person you are, because some people have more trouble of like sitting down and working for long periods of time. You have to kind of figure out what kind of worker learner you are. So sometimes people need just chunks of time. So, and then, okay, I need to take a break, right? And then some people need, the location is very important, right? And you have to hold yourself accountable, because this is not like a boss that is telling you, you have this timeline, you have your own timelines, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, I need to do this. Otherwise, so there could be a reward also. Like, I'm not going to do this, or I'm not going to get this until I finish this, right? So I set myself reasonable expectations too, because otherwise I'm going to think I can do 1 through 100 when really I probably can only do 1 through 10.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So reasonable expectations, making sure the location is like a good setting. I'm not going to work in my living room when there's a bunch of noise,
Yeah.
right? If I know that I'm just like squirrel, like it's not going to be. So sometimes I'll even just be, okay, I need to go to my office and do the work, or I'll stay later. So sometimes I'll say, yeah, I don't have any more appointments, but I have other stuff I still have to do,
Yeah.
right? There's the business side of it, or there's phone calls, or there's other things. And if I go home, yeah, I could probably do it at home, but I won't be as productive if I go home.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's budgeting your time, and it's all very practical things. It's just actually putting them into practice is where the disconnect is sometimes. Yeah. So kind of along those lines, with having the balance and working in business and everything, I think sometimes people get so wrapped up in their business that they can kind of fall into a trap of almost wrapping their identity up in it. And then, when something bad happens with the business, then, like they feel bad about themselves kind of thing, and vice versa. Do you have any tips on how you keep, I guess, a healthy self-image, or keep that boundary in your mind of the business is not necessarily who I am, sort of thing?
Right. It's because if you are wrapping up yourself in that identity, then that's all your worth is, and you're more than that, right? So if we look at it as our gifting or a calling, or it's like our passion, or whatever it is that you describe it as, yes, that is part of me, but that is not everything of me. That is not everything that I am, and I have way more things that in my life that I'm involved with. And I think that's probably an important thing too, is that that's not the only thing in your life. Right?
Yeah.
Because if it is, then once that's taken away, then who are you? And I see that all the time even just in, let's say, parenting, right? If all we're doing is parenting, once that season of our life is over, then what else is there in my life?
Yeah.
Right? So making sure we always have other things in our life that we are, find value in, and our roles and things like that. So knowing that that's not everything.
In line with that previous question then, how do you stay positive and motivated when you do experience failure in business or your employment, whatever it is that people are doing?
Yeah, so staying motivated, I think that you always have to keep an eye on what you're doing, always growing too, because we can become mundane if we're just doing the same thing over and over again. So I think always making sure that you are enjoying the work that you're doing, and if it becomes something that's just so mundane and kind of like, ugh, again, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what's so great, is that sometimes you could have an area of interest that you really like. Making sure you like what you're doing, not just serving everybody because you can, right? Yeah, I can help this person, and this person, but is that really like drive me? Does that really motivate me? Or am I just like, I'm going to be doing that again today. I don't really want to, but it's a client. Right? So I'm making sure that I'm always serving people that I really want to serve, and that I feel like I can give value to. And I think it changes over time. I'm growing, and like first it was just me. Now I have other people that are working under me. So I really enjoy that, mentoring others. And I enjoy like even teaching, which isn't something that's connected to my private practice, but I enjoy that too, right? So it fills me up, like, okay, I know I'm more than just that. And even just as like you guys are saying, like I'm also looking into doing other things, like maybe doing a podcast, or maybe writing a book, or writing manuals and things like that. So that makes me like excited and motivated, and I'm like always learning and training to be better at my craft, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. So how would you encourage someone then, who maybe they don't like what they're doing, or they're in a position where they want to be doing something different but they're not there yet? How would you encourage them maybe to grow in that season, or just help them.
Right. So I think it's networking too, talking with others in the field, because there's so many things that you could be doing, right? So sometimes we don't want to get into the place of desperation, right? Because it's our lifeline, right? Like it's what we need to live, and so we need an income. But if we get to that place of like of desperation, we're just accepting anything that comes our way, and that is not going to be what drives us and keeps us like longevity in the business. So what I would say is like make sure you keep your eyes open, like what else is out there. And it's okay if there's not that many people doing it, or if it's okay if there's a lot of people doing it, if that you have something to offer. There's something different about you, because I know I'm not everybody's cup of tea, right? And I'm okay with that, because for me, if I just think about the client, I want to serve the client and what is best for them, and I may not be that. So that's where I think it's important that I am actually cheering other people on in the field as well, like, or even referring other people to other people, because I can't be everything to everybody, and I'm okay with that. So if I am focused on the client and the service that I'm providing, I know what I can offer, and I find value in that. And then if I can't meet that person's needs, that's okay. I'm not going to get desperate.
Yeah.
Because
that's good.
People will come.
Yeah. That's really good, especially because I think with business too, like if you're in a position too where you're just starting out, you want to take everything you can get. But if you're taking everything you can get, and any client that comes your way or whatever it is, you're setting kind of a precedent. Like if you're constantly taking people who want cheap deals, like for us it's cheap deals, that's the precedent, and you're going to get all those clients in the future. You're not going to get the ones that you really want. That makes total sense.
One of the things that I do, and I've actually learned from the boot camp that so I've done it from the beginning, is I do a 15-minute free phone consultation. So that way I know what the person is looking for. They get to hear my voice. They get to hear what I can offer them. And I present it to them. This is what I do. This is how I could serve you. And what are you looking for? Do you have questions? That way it's like a meet and greet, right? And I can see if I really want it, if that person really is wanting to invest in themselves in this. They could see if I'm really for them too, because there's times where they're like, I'm not sure. I'm like, it's totally up to you. You can give me a call back, or if you need some referrals, I can offer that to you too. Because my thing is, I just want them to get the help that they need. I just want to get them the service. So sometimes you will find that I present to them, okay, this is how much it is. And they're like, why? They're like, ooh. But because we've already connected and they feel comfortable, or they're like, I really like what you're saying, or I really like, how you work. And I think that is more valuable than like I think I want to do that. I want to make it work.
So you had mentioned networking a little bit. You touched on it. I would want to hear more about how you're able to network and build business relationships that can pull you in business.
So networking was also something that I learned through those who helped me. And like I said, I know that I'm not for everybody. And so I know that everybody else is not for everybody, right? And so when you network, and like I said, when we cheer everybody on, because there's enough people for everybody, right? It's not a competition. So I do not look at what I do as a competition, because if we do, then we are getting like fear. Like, someone else is going to win me this, and I'm not going to get it, right? And so in the beginning, I don't do it as much now, but I still do it. I would just look at people in the look close to me who are doing what I was doing, and I would call them up, and I would just say like, hey, this is Anna Alvarez. I'm a licensed marriage family therapist in the area, and I just wanted to connect with you and ask you about, what the population you serve. I want to build a referral basis as well. So if you can give me a call back, or, sometimes they would answer, and so then they would give me a call back, right? Because they heard referral. There's something in it for me, right? But I mean, that wasn't necessarily my only motivation, but when you're in a business on your own, there is like this island that you're on by yourself, rather than if you work for a whole company, right? And you have these people on the top, you have yourselves, you have people under you, you have like this little team or family. When you're in your own business, it's just you. And it's like, what coworker can I talk to today? Like, you know, it's like there's nobody there. So other people do want to like, oh, tell me what you're doing. I'll tell you what I'm doing, because not everybody serves the same population, right? And so just recently, there was someone local, they're a pastor, but they're also a licensed therapist. And they recently were serving in the area that I was serving. I knew them from when I was like a teenager, and I had been like really interested in hearing about if he's working in the field. And so I called him up and I said, hey, I wanted to talk to you about this. And I just kind of talked to him and I said, hey, I know you're a therapist, and I know you're pastoring in the area, and I just wanted to see what you were doing. I'm also a therapist, and you know, I knew you from a long time ago. And he was like just really interested in what I did too. And so the call ended with like, hey, if it's okay, I can refer people to you. And he's like, for sure, refer people, but it's good to know that there is somebody else, because if I refer somebody, I want to make sure I know who I'm referring to. Right? That they are legit, or they're like what kind of character they have, how they do business. Sometimes I'll
for your own credibility
right,
too.
Right. And of course, and if I am also client centered, right? Like I want to make sure I'm not just giving Abby a name and hope it works out for you. Like,
here, take this person I don't want.
Like, sorry, you know. And sometimes I will say like, hey, Abby, I know you're looking for somebody. Here's a few names that I've heard are good, but I'm going to let you know I don't know how they work. So you're going to have to ask questions and find out. And if it doesn't work out for you, I'll try to help you some more. But then there's people that I will be able to say like, hey, I know this person is good. Like this is who they help, and it would be good for you. Sounds like a really good fit. Yeah. So that is part of the networking that I feel like is helpful, because when we're focused on serving people, then it's not a competition.
Yeah. I like that too, because I haven't really heard before the thought of like calling the people in your industry and getting to know them personally for the sake of building community, having people to refer to, things like that. That's a really good idea. Because like we've been to networking meetings, but it's all with people from all different businesses. So I like that idea. It's really good.
So, I mean, I'm sure that there's a lot of things like you guys can business, you know, events or things like that. But I'm sure you probably already found out that there's some that you don't like to do. Yeah. Right?
Yep.
Whatever it might be. And that's okay. It's not a bad thing. That's where you become like specialized in an area, right? So if somebody comes to you and says, hey, Nick and Abby, I have this event, and you're like, I really don't do those. And you don't have to say I don't like doing it. It's just not for me, right? Yeah. This is what we do. But I do know somebody who's really good at that, and I can give you a name.
Yeah.
Right? And so then you just helped them, and they're happy, and they're probably going to say, hey, I know Nick and Abby. Yep. They do that. You're looking for that because they helped me. And do you see what I'm saying?
Yep, exactly.
All the guests that we've had on, most of them at least, have given us the same advice of get around the people who are successful in your area in order to be successful yourself. So we've been asking this as well, as how do you get around the right mentors, and how do you find the right people and connect with them? So yeah, we're just trying to get as many answers on that as we can.
I think you guys have heard this before, is like people can mentor you and still not know you, right? And so that's one way, right? Like you see people on social media, you read people's books, you hear their podcasts, like they're actually mentoring you because you're learning from them and how they work. So that's one way. But also, like I said, like calling people and seeing it, there aren't very, in my field, I would say it's so, how would I say it? There's like this, like I said, you're doing your business by yourself. Not a lot of people know. So sometimes it's just asking what people are doing. Maybe not everything they're doing is what you would like, but maybe there's parts of it that you do like. And
Yeah.
so you kind of pick and choose finding those people in your local area, because they're more people that you can relate to because they're serving the same kind of population that you're serving, right? But also, I think just finding out what area you need help in, because you may not need everything that one person, so you might need to pick and choose. So if there's a certain area that you need more tips in, you might look for that area.
With that too, there's kind of I think people want to get mentored, they want to reach out, but there's almost this barrier where they think, oh, those people wouldn't talk to me, or I wouldn't be able to get around those relationships, or I don't have anything to offer them. That barrier is kind of a mental thing. Do you think that is true, or is it more like people just think there's not a lot of resources out there, but there are, or what do you think about that?
I think people want to talk about themselves and what they're doing. And so even, and I'm very open to, I have every year, or I'll say semester, I get phone calls from the local university because they have an assignment similar to what I had when I was in high school. They need to interview a therapist and be in the field, or somebody in the field that they are interested in, and they want to ask me questions. I'm always open to that. Leaving yourself open to help others to learn, I think you have to get over that first. No, I want to make time for others, right? Because that's how we serve. But also, if I want to make time, then most likely other people will want to make time. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be like, okay, let's take an hour out of my day and meet at a coffee shop. It could just be a phone call. Sometimes people will say, I can just send you the questions in an email. And it's usually fine, I'll just respond really fast. But willing to do that gets you over the barrier of other people who would be thinking oh, nobody would want to do that for me.
Yeah, I think we're surprised too, because we've had I don't know if you know Joe Pony. You know Joe Pony. He was the one that helped us get started, and we're in the same industry as him, but he was totally championing us, helping us, getting us started. And it's we live relatively close. Technically we could be considered a threat or whatever, but he's just concerned about us succeeding too. Yeah. So I think that a lot of people actually do want to help others succeed in business.
Yeah, and I think that the people who are successful, not all of them obviously, but a lot of them are generous, and that's a big part of why they're successful too. So there's more out there than you think of people that want to help you. So it's cool.
And there's more than enough customers.
Yeah.
To go around.
Yes. That's why we don't get into that desperation or that competition. We're cheering everybody on, because when we cheer other people on, it's you're going to see that's going to be shown hey, it's not just I'm better than you. No, you can't know what I know, kind of thing, right? Yeah. It's not the McDonald's sauce that you can't tell that's the secret sauce recipe, right? Yep. No, because everybody has something different to offer.
Yeah, it's true. Awesome. And in different industries, I don't know how much in your industry it would work this way, but collaborating is a big part of it. So if they're successful, and they're oh, I need help because I have a really huge project, it's okay, now their success is my success because we've developed this relationship. So
you can help them on it. Yeah.
And I do that all the time, is collaborating with others. And so so that could just look okay, I might be serving the child, but the mom needs some services. And so I connected with so and so over here, and she seems really great. I'm going to help you connect with them. So then we collaborate and work together. Again, there's more than enough people to go around.
Yeah, that's awesome. So something you kind of touched on earlier too, you mentioned that you had to kind of bring people in to help you, employees, I guess is the word for it. But so how did you make that jump from doing everything by yourself? Because that's a hard jump, because you go from kind of doing everything to kind of managing people, doing stuff for you, and it's your reputation still on the line. How do you do that?
That was huge. This is not my first time having an employee, but when your business grows, that's a great thing, right? Yeah. But it also stretches you to, because when you build a business, as you know, it's like your baby, right? And you become very protective of it, and it's a reputation, right? It's a lot of things. It's a trust thing. So my husband has always been involved in some way. He is more involved now than he's been before. He's doing more of the business part of it. And so he's working with me, but also before, I think it was probably like 5 years ago, I was getting to the point where I was like, okay, I can't see everybody. Like that's calling me. I'm having a wait list and I want to serve people. So maybe it's time. And so, but I couldn't just like put in an ad and be like, hey, there's this job, right? Because I am very specific with my services, and it had to go with my values. It had to go with relationship. Like I had to know this person, and this person did show up. It was a person that I had relationship with. I knew she was in the field, and I basically presented this to her. I said, hey, what do you think about doing some hours over here? I know you still need to be under some training. So she came under me, and we worked for a little while together, and that relationship ended because she had some priorities in her family, and it worked well. But again, so some time passed. I was on my own again. Actually, COVID happened, and then but in my field, COVID like increased my business. And I was like, I need somebody else. Like but I can't just get anybody. I need somebody who's going to work the same way, or at least I can train them and they'll understand how to do it, and that I can trust. Again, it was relationship.
Especially in your field, you need somebody you could trust.
So actually, my husband brought this person's name up, and I was like, yes, of course. Oh my gosh, this is a great idea. I don't know if they'll do it, but yes, I would be open to having that person work with me. And so presenting it to that person, it was actually an answer to prayer for her and I. And she was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening. This is what we've been praying for. And so it was the right fit. And so again, it's like, I just had to wait and be patient for the right person to come, because again, it's my time that I'm investing. It's money I'm investing. It's my reputation. It's a lot that I'm putting.
It's a risk.
Yeah. And so talking to that person, making sure they understood what it was going to be like, what the expectations were going to be, and that we were all on the same page. And it's been a really good fit. And I'm really glad that I took the risk, because it is a risk.
Yeah. And how did bringing that person on, how did that kind of shift your responsibilities too? Because I'm sure there were some changes that happened of the things you had to manage or handle.
Right. So there's a lot of things like the back end, right? The business part that you have to be involved in. And thankfully, like I have some support on that. But I also had to make time to do training with that person. So I had to arrange my life. So there were some other commitments that at that time, like somebody else wanted me to teach for their school. Somebody else wanted me to be involved in another thing. And I was like, I know this is going to take a lot of my time and energy to train this person and to be focused, because it's new for me. It's new for them. We're growing. So I was like, I can't say yes to that, and I can't say yes to that. Some boundaries there. Even though those were all good things, I just was, if I want to be successful in this, I need to make sure my focus is here. And that was kind of like how I had to look at it. And I knew, like, I had reasonable expectations. Like, I wasn't going to be like, oh, we'll just fit right in and think it's not going to take a lot from me. But I knew it was going to take time, money, energy, mental capacity. And so I prepared myself mentally for all of that. And that's kind of how it's been.
It's scary.
It is. It is.
It's very scary.
It's scary, yeah. We've been in that, or thinking about that too, like when we're going to bring people on, and it's like, oh my gosh.
We've been trying to extend the time that we don't need to bring people on as long as we can. We're so like, who do we trust? So
Right.
hard.
Just waiting for the right person,
Yeah. And they'll come. Like and thinking about it, even if it's somebody who's experienced or not experienced, that like maybe it's a mentorship, like or apprenticeship or something like that.
Yeah.
And that way they could learn more about how you're not like trying to unteach them and reteach them.
Yeah.
You know, because that's sometimes
That's true.
like bad habits or ways
That's a
that
good
you don't
point.
want them.
I didn't even think about that.
So this question's really broad, but what would you say is the biggest piece of advice that you could give someone starting out fresh, trying to get their business going?
I would say is be okay with being a beginner.
Yeah.
Because we're all beginners. We don't like it. It's uncomfortable because we like to be experts, but we're not going to be an expert.
Yeah.
You're going to be a beginner, but doesn't mean you're going to stay at that stage, because you're going to grow and probably grow really fast.
Yeah.
But the first stage is being a beginner. And I think even as you add other services or you add other things in your life, again, you're going to feel like a beginner. It's like, wow, I've been doing this for 5 years, but now I'm doing this new thing. And I feel so insecure because I've not done that yet, right? Like I haven't done being an employer. So I'm now an employer. Okay, I want to make sure I do a great job. Because I think that's the thing, is we want to do a great job, right? We want to succeed. And so feeling like a beginner is like, I'm at a deficit, right? Then comparison can come in too. So being careful not to compare what you know or what other people are doing, because you're right where you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
Reasonable expectations for yourself, and you can't expect to be at step 10 when really you're only on step 2, right?
Yeah, that's really good. And it's helpful because you have to remember, like, even the person that's been doing it 10 years and they're extremely successful, they started as a beginner.
Right.
And I love that you said that even when you've been doing it, you become like maybe an expert at one thing, you're still a beginner at 20 other things that you're going to have to start doing. So that's really good.
It is. It's encouraging to think about, like, okay, this person who I look at as an expert is probably also, just as much a beginner in whatever new things, because they're always taking on new things too. It's like, we're not that different. They're just on a different part of their path than me. So it's
that's really good.
And I think that when we have like that growth mind, then we're always wanting to grow, right?
Yeah.
So we're always wanting to add new things, and that's how we should be. But if we let fear set in, or insecurities, then we're just going to stay doing, like, I just know how to do this. That's all I'm going to do, because I know I'm good at it. I know it. And then you're just going to stay there, though, right? You're never growing. You're never building anything more than that one thing.
Yeah. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that prevents people from ever getting started in entrepreneurship and getting their own businesses going is that fear.
Right.
Yeah. And not knowing how to take the first step,
It's risks.
Yes,
you have to be a risk taker,
Yeah.
right? But you also have to value yourself and value what you know and value what you believe it could be, right? Because there's been plenty of times where I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Like, I need to meet with this person, and this person is like this, or okay, I have to remind myself, I know what I'm doing. I can do this, right? I have everything that is in me to do this job, and it'll work out. It always does. But it's like getting over that hump. Because if I just am like, I'm good. I'll be over here doing my safe thing.
Yeah, that's funny, because whenever we were starting out, like, my whole life I've like practiced these things, but I always look at, like, okay, who's the top of the game, that I'm trying to match. And I was like, wow, I'm not at that level, so that means I'm not ready to start. And I remember whenever I first got all my camera equipment and stuff, and Abby had never even seen anything I had done.
I was really scared. I was like, he started this, I don't know what he can do.
And she was like the person that was able to take, she's good at taking that first step, and I was definitely not. So she was like, we're all in, I'm in support of you. And then a little bit after, she's like, wow, I'm really glad that you knew how to take some pictures, because
I had no idea.
I was going all in, so I was going all in for it, but I'd never seen anything, so it was just funny.
Yep, that was crazy.
It's like step of faith, right?
Yes.
Like just
big step of faith.
What are you going to produce, right?
Yep, exactly.
And sometimes the thing is that we are like all set, even if we're like, okay, we're going to do this, and then you're like, okay, where's the customers? Like, okay, I can do it, but it's like crickets.
Yep.
But you got to keep going, and you can't let just like maybe a time where like you're not seeing it, what you want, the reward or the benefits. It's like, no, you got to keep going. It's going to show up.
Yeah, definitely. And we even had calls sometimes where people were like, "Oh, you've never done this before? Oh, well, I'm probably gonna have to go with someone else." And it's like, give us a chance, but it happens eventually. You just have to
it does. You just have to be persistent with it, and
yeah, and you have to talk about yourself like, in a way that like is confident, right? Attractive, and also it's like the relationship, like, this is what I think I can do for you, and
And like for you too, you do the 15-minute consultation calls too, which is like, oh, you've never done this, but I've already connected with you, and I can hear you, and you're already credible in my mind because I've had this connection with you. So like in our field, it was, we're gonna, for our first, however many jobs, we're just gonna go do a couple things for free just so we can build some credibility and a foundation, and then we can start.
Right.
Yeah.
There was in the beginning. So in my field, there's like a safe way, and there's a more riskier way.
Yeah.
But the riskier way does give you some more benefits. And I remember in the beginning, there's that time where it's, again, you're like feeling a little desperate. Like, okay, I'll give it to you for this amount. Like, I just need somebody to walk in my door. I just need to serve somebody, right?
Yeah.
But then you're lowballing your value,
Yeah.
right? And you're not valuing yourself. And I remember there was a time where my husband is like, "Are you sure you don't want to do it that way?" Like, because it's a guarantee that you're going to get somebody. But that's also more work, more time. It's not going to give me, it'll give me some income, but it's not going to give me the income that I'm valued at. And so I was like, no, I don't want to do that way, because if I do, I'm going to get stuck in that way. And I'm not going to get to where I know that I can be. So I have to do it this way, even if it's crickets right now.
Did you ever have like a middle ground, like kind of compromise, or you just were always had the same?
Yeah, I did. I did have like, there were times where I did like a sliding scale or something like that. But I was also very how do I say it? Not picky, but like very. I chose who I would do the sliding scales for, and it was like they would come from a certain flow of referrals. And so I was very particular with like, okay, I'm only doing that, and then I'm limiting how many I can do. Because if I did that for everybody, then I'd be like not making enough, right? So and then over time, as you get experience, okay, there's an increase in my rates because I'm more experienced now, or I'm specializing in a certain area. Over time, I can work up to that. But if I just want just the flow and like the desperation, then I'm just not gonna have my value.
And you're so drained and depleted from all the excess work that you're doing. That's,
you don't stay motivated.
Right? Full circle.
Yes, and then you're just caught in that cycle of
Exactly. Right. So you don't just accept the contracts that come in just because you need some income.
It's hard, and it's so scary starting out, like turning down clients like, well, this is money that I don't have. But then it's more jobs that I don't want always coming in, and
Right.
Makes sense.
And sometimes you make exceptions. Like I think it depends. There's been exceptions that I've made where because of relationship or because of certain needs, and I'll say, okay, I'm going to do that. But if I do that for everybody, or if I make this exception all the time, I'm just going to be like even a little bit resentful of the work, right? I don't want to do that. So I'm doing it because I want to make this exception. I see the need, and I feel like my heart is in the right place for it.
And I think that like one of the things that we've done too is it's like the 80-20, is that what it is?
80-20.
Yeah, so like a lot of our recurring clients, and like the bulk of our like, because for our job there's not much stability in like how much income you're getting. It's just like it's completely different every month. You don't know what's coming. But for that like 80% of people that it's like, okay, I charge them a little bit cheaper, but they give me a ton of work, and then for everyone else that's not them, I'm they're paying the
full price.
They're the whales that you hunt for, right? And then you have the people that's just sustaining.
80% of your income comes from a certain sustainable recurring customer, and then the 20% comes from outside jobs.
And that's been really helpful for us. So.
But learning all that, right?
Learning all that. We didn't know that till like this year. For sure.
Right. I think one of the important things is your value, like valuing yourself and your work, because people will sense that, right? If you're talking to them, even if you're just talking to them over the phone, or here's my services, they can tell how confident you feel and how secure you feel. So I leave it to them. Like, hey, do you want to make a phone call? Do you want to talk with this person, your family member, before you let me know if you want to give me a call back, or it's up to you. Do you want to make an appointment now? I'm not like pushing myself on the person. I'm just like, I'm here. This is what I could be for you. And if not, then I bless you on your way. Yeah. Right? Like, and I hope that you find what you're looking for. Yeah. And when there's that sense of like, oh, you care about me. You care that I'm just going to get the help that get the service that I need. Yeah. Then they feel that. And because I'm valuing them and I value myself, like, okay, yeah, I understand that is, that is a big commitment in your budget. And we can work it like this, or we could work it like this. Or if that's not going to work for you, I can give you some other ideas of what could work for you somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and when you have that confidence too, knowing your value and stuff, it's like people aren't going to keep trying to lowball you or get you to get the price down, because they're like, oh, this person, this is their price, and they're set on that price.
They don't sound desperate. Yeah,
people
can sense your desperation big time.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you guys so much for listening. We hope you learned just as much as we did on this episode of the Palikari Business Podcast.
Yeah, for more information on our guests, make sure to check out the podcast description on whatever platform you're listening on.
Yeah, and if you'd like to connect with us and continue the discussion, you can always join our Palikari Community Discord and follow us on Instagram and TikTok. Just search for us under the handle @Odyssey Productions Co. for new podcast clips in your feed every week.
Until then, we'll see you next time.